This is the A2 bomber, and this is what it can do. So I wanted to do a video talking about nerfing, or what I'm really saying is rebalancing the A2, but I couldn't do that without directly addressing some of the controversy I started about last week or so on a stream that I did, and it was shortly following an event or an experience that I'm showing here on the screen, wherein I was bombed by an A2 who had come in and effectively suicide bombed without me being able to stop them, along with the rest of the group that I was playing with. And so I wanted to clear the air a little bit about my position, what happened, and my perspective, because I felt really bad about the way what I said came off, because I said that the position of people saying that the A2 didn't need to change was stupid came off as me saying that people are stupid, and that got turned into people saying that I said that they were idiots, which I didn't and I didn't mean, but it came off that way, and so I felt I needed to apologize because, again, I felt really bad. I didn't want people to feel like I was personally attacking them, because I don't think personally attacking people is a great way to continue to have a conversation about a game's balance, especially about a game that I personally care a lot about, which is Star Citizen. And frustratingly, one of the things that happened because of this is that a lot of people made content and videos about this and posts, which further misconstrued my argument, and it kind of became like a game of telephone where by the end of it, people thought I was saying, they need to get rid of the A2 altogether and completely nerf it with no bombs, and that, I just want to nerf everything, or some stupid stuff like that, which is not at all what I was saying. Though at the time, I was really emotional. I was really upset at the experience, and that's kind of the raw experience you get when you watch someone stream, at least for me, is that it's a bit unfiltered. It comes off on the moment, and there's not like a structured way I'm presenting material. I'm just speaking off the cuff, which is kind of the cool thing about streaming, but also has downsides, because sometimes you say things that you didn't mean, and you say things before you've fully formed arguments. At least that's what I do sometimes. But now I've had a chance to really kind of fully form my thought process on why I think the A2 needs to be rebalanced, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that so it could be more clearly understood my position on the subject, because I really feel very strongly about this point, and I wanted you guys to understand where I was coming from. But before you guys listen to me talk about my opinion on the subject, I want to also add in a little bit of a disclaimer here, and that's I don't actually have as much weight as a lot of you guys might think I do when I talk about gameplay design choices in Star Citizen. Many of you guys think that I'm somehow, altering or influencing CIG's plans, which I'm not, and I am incapable of doing. When it comes to things like ship and area design, stuff to do with architecture and the way things look, yeah, I do have some influence at CIG when it comes to those things, because that's my wheelhouse, that's my expertise. But when it comes to game development, I have no experience in this area, and so they don't take my thoughts and my feelings with the same amount of weight. CIG doesn't make gameplay decisions based on the feedback of one or even a group of creators, or even, in some cases, a large portion of the community. They make gameplay decisions based on their own internal reasoning, based on the direction they want to go and the balanced vision that they have for the game, and certain ships and features that have yet to come in. And so when CIG make a decision, when they make a gameplay change, it's not because a creator said something, it's because they made that decision and it just happened to align with what a creator says. It's rather kind of like a coincidence more than a direct effect. And one other thing to keep in mind is that usually when people make videos that are successful and that people see, it's because what they're expressing is something that aligns at least with some level of the community. And so if that sentiment already existed, that's probably a sentiment that already exists in CIG's mind as well. So if you get what I'm saying here, I don't have an effect on CIG. I just sometimes say things that CIG are thinking by chance, and they make those changes. But they do occasionally listen to what the community is saying and, put that into the little discussion that they might have about the subject. And that's why I like talking about it a bit more so than anything else. I just like talking about Star Citizen, and so I wanted to talk about the subject and start a discussion to see what you guys thought about it. That's why I did it on stream, and that's why I'm making a video on it right now. So now let me speak on why I think the A2 needs to be rebalanced and how that might be accomplished. So one of the really big important things I want to get across with this discussion right away is that I am not talking about whether or not the A2 can be countered. In fact, it can be countered. That's not really what I'm debating. Initially, when I talked about this, I said the A2 is impossible to counter when it suicide bombs, but even then, it is still possible to counter it, but that isn't really the point I was trying to make. So let's set that aside for a moment in order for you to clearly understand my argument. What I was trying to talk about with the A2 is that the effort required on the part of the A2 pilot to bomb is not proportional to the amount of effort required to counter the A2 on the other side at Jumptown. Here's exactly what I mean. So in order for you to bomb at Jumptown, all you require is an A2 and your ability to fly it, and knowledge of how to arm and drop the bomb. And if you have a little bit of sense, you'll drop it at nearly point blank, not allowing anybody on the ground to actually shoot the bomb before it hits. And if you really want to troll, all you have to do is drop the bomb as you run into the ground, and there's very little people can do to stop you. On the other side, there's a couple things that you can do. In one scenario I talked about with A1, Avenger 1, who is a well-known PvPer in the community, what you could do is have a scout looking for A2s approaching and then just run away with your group of 2 other friends and make your money that way. But in this scenario, you still require 3 skilled individuals. One person being able to take the boxes out of the conveyor at Jumptown, one person to fly the getaway ship, and one skilled person able to fly a fighter to scout and make sure an A2 isn't approaching. In this scenario, you can't have a new player because they just won't know how to do what they need to do in order for you to survive. However, if you want to actually be able to stop the A2 before it's able to drop a bomb point blank, which is the worst case scenario, you're going to need a lot more DPS to stop it. So what you might have is a number of ballistas. In order for you to have ballistas though, you need to have a C2 or M2 or even A2 to be able to transfer your ballistas onto the ground. You'll also need scouts to be able to tell the ballistas where the A2 is coming from. You'll also want to have those scouts be in greater numbers because you need to be able to fan out around Jumptown to detect whether or not it's coming from, any different direction. And you only have, because keep in mind, you only have about 25 seconds to stop it before it gets to the point when it comes within radar range. And optimally, if somebody has an Eclipse or Retaliator, they're going to want to sit directly above Jumptown, ready to shoot a torpedo at an approaching A2, because as I said earlier, shooting a torpedo behind the A2 isn't going to catch it in time before it actually bombs. So you need to be in front of it, which means that you need to be directly on top of Jumptown. But in order for you to do that, in order for you to be there, you're also going to need support, because both the Retaliator and the Eclipse are fairly vulnerable by themselves. The Retaliator has no guns by itself, it can only shoot torpedoes, and the Eclipse is fairly weak and pretty much the same deal, it only shoots torpedoes. It does have 2 size 2 ballistic guns by default, but those aren't going to do anything before you get killed. In this particular scenario you're seeing on screen, we had a fully manned Retaliator, which is the only reason why I was able to come in here by myself without any sort of fighter support, which enabled me to kill a number of people, but I wouldn't have been able to do that without the support of my people on the ship. And all of this in order to counter an A2. Now I have also seen the argument floated counter to what I was talking about, that the only ship you need to counter the A2 is an Eclipse. But in this scenario, you need a very expensive ship that not everybody has, and so you're creating a sense of elitism in order for you to stop a specific ship. And I don't think that's a great way to balance the game. If the only way for you to play to counter somebody who spent $700+ on a ship is to spend $300 or whatever it costs for the Eclipse, then that's not really great. It doesn't really help the argument that Star Citizen is not pay to win. That very much looks pay to win to me. And so in my mind, and you can disagree with me here, which I'm sure many of you will, that it should require a little bit more effort on the part of the A2 pilot in order for them to actually bomb Jumptown. That they would require some support from either gunners on board the ship to protect them as they come in, or even a small wing of fighters to escort them in to make sure that they're not picked off. In order for them to balance this then, in my view what needs to be done is that, at least in the short term, that the range that the ship is able to drop the bomb should be increased. In other words, you should have to drop the bomb at a higher altitude, giving players a chance to shoot the bomb before it hits the ground. Additionally, the ship should have a maximum speed in my mind before it's able to drop the bomb. That way it can't fly at top speed through atmosphere, avoiding torpedoes and avoiding any DPS that would put any dent in it before it's able to bomb its target, at least by itself. I don't think that the bombs need to be removed or even nerfed. I think it's really cool to have a really big fancy explosion. I only hope that the cost of doing something like this is more than just monetary, that it requires a lot more skill and effort on the part of the bomber in order for them to do it, because the consequences of it are so great and so imbalanced that it just doesn't seem fair to everybody else at the moment. But hey, maybe none of this conversation even really matters, because they're probably going to be changing the flight model pretty soon with all this talk of quantum boost. It does sound like they're going to be bringing maximum speeds down to SCM level, and so at that kind of speed, it probably will balance the ship anyway. But what do you guys think? I'm sure some of you guys are still not going to understand my point, still not going to agree with me, and well, if you're that kind of person, you're probably not even watching at this point, so I'm not really talking to them. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a bit informal and it didn't have a lot of really pretty shots like my usual videos, but I really wanted to get this out there and clear the air and make my position clear. So anyway guys, I've been Morphologist. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.